You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is John Dean, former CEO of Silicon Valley Bank, who took their market cap from $63 million to over $3 billion. Forbes magazine named him as one of the 50 most powerful deal makers. Entrepreneurs Foundation, you did mention that you wanted to involve the community, have a community philosophy involved in building a business. Could you share with us a little bit about Entrepreneurs Foundation? Because that originally started in Silicon Valley, correct?
Yes, thanks for asking. Entrepreneurs Foundation, the genius behind that is Gib Myers of Mayfield, a venture capital firm. He has since retired. But he wanted to make a difference, and research that he had done, a lot of the startup companies in Silicon Valley really weren't giving back. They weren't spending time in the community. Financially, they weren't doing as much as they should. Some studies said that 90-95% of the employees of the startups weren't connected to the community. In the response is they don't have time, they're 24/7. So he came up with a very novel idea, which was to go to those companies, to the CEO, and to ask them to donate some of their stock, $50,000, $100,000 worth of the shares at the last round of financing, and gift that to the Entrepreneurs Foundation Silicon Valley. And then in return, the foundation would work programs for the employees, because these were small companies still, to allow them to do, at the holiday season, some sort of food drive, the Christmas in April that has another name today, and so help them in getting involved in the community. Now the value to the company, twofold, is the gross up, when there is a liquidity event, a sale of that company or an IPO, then for tax purposes, if you were that Silicon Valley company and had gifted 50,000 of your shares, let's say it's the Evan and Carey Corporation, and gifted 50,000. Let's say the value of that at the liquidity event was $500,000. For tax purposes, you both get a $500,000 tax deduction. We have an IRS ruling. It's the gross up of that $50,000. So a little bit of dilution, you've gotten a large impact from that. In addition, then, the Entrepreneurs Foundation, at that liquidity event, would gift back to your organization, if it were an IPO, half, not in terms of income to the company, but in the form of what's called a 501c3. So you'd have your own nonprofit organization that would seed you as you grew and assist you in getting more quickly involved in giving back to the community. Now, if you ended up not going IPO, but let's say just selling your shares, or selling your company to a third party, then instead of us giving that half of that original gift to the acquiring institution, we gift it to the community foundation, but to be run by the two of you. For here to be the benefit of Hawaii. So I was a founding director, very much involved with Gib. Actually went into the Entrepreneurs Foundation for 6 months in a turnaround situation, but then wanted to do that in Hawaii, and have been very active. Leanne Miyasato is our executive director. We have some wonderful companies as part of that. Hoku, Dustin Shindo, is a company that went IPO, so you're familiar with that. Patrick Sullivan, Ohana, EasyRes, Tina Fitch, and there's just a whole, I wish I could go through a CIS guy, Kevin Sipneski, but a great group of companies, all who have contributed gifted stock to the Entrepreneurs Foundation of Hawaii, which will someday, and hopefully at a very large premium, be used for helping the community in the state.
Is most of that purely charitable, or do they also get mentoring from your organization and so on?
Well, the program is one of community and involvement in the community and the tax deduction I mentioned to you. But as a, we might call it a benefit, maybe it's a detriment, but here in Hawaii, I get actively and try to get actively involved in working with the CEOs of the companies that are part of the Entrepreneurs Foundation. And it just, to the extent you can help, and every little bit helps. So I enjoy that.
It's actually pretty interesting because you almost have a vested interest in helping them too, because it's almost like an investment, right?
Well, I've invested in some, so the answer is absolutely yes. But besides that, it's I'm in a good stage where I actually, it's fun to see young entrepreneurs successful. And it's even nicer when you see those entrepreneurs as committed in giving back to the community.
So is this a good organization to join if you're a CEO or a leader of a business, so that you can get involved in the community this way and you folks assist in guiding to get involved and build your business and the community involvement at the same time?
Absolutely. We're going to hire you. But it's a wonderful, wonderful way to get involved in the community. And I think to the extent you do something like that, if you believe the organizations that have a commitment to community, to values, to their employees, and what builds better communication and trust among employees if they're working in the community together, whatever that project might be. So I just think there's wonderful benefits, and to me it's a win-win-win situation.
Do you have a story that you can share of a business that's involved in Entrepreneurs Foundation of Hawaii that you saw a great impact when they started working with you folks, and they didn't have that community involvement to begin with, but joining EF, they started incorporating this community value, and it helped them grow, it changed the morale of the company. Can you share a story about that?
It's tougher in Hawaii because what I said earlier, if you recall, most of the companies in Hawaii are already committed to the community, so there's sort of a leg up on this. I'm going to get in trouble if you air this in Silicon Valley, right? But they're on average a little bit farther along in terms of that commitment to the community. That story needs to be told in another 3-4 years in terms of that evolution. Probably the best example today would be Hoku. Dustin Shindo, and member of EF, Entrepreneurs Foundation of Hawaii. Company recently went public, and Dustin just has a very large commitment, well before EF, on his own, in terms of the community and giving back. And I just see that growing, and his involvement and his employees' involvement growing as his company grows.
Can you take me through the thought process of what you're thinking when you're coming here to Hawaii? You're not necessarily living here, but you spend time here. Why are you actually spending time helping the community, giving back, and why are you doing that?
Should I be guilty about this?
Just wondering. Just wondering.
It's what I do. It's what I like. It's my passion still today. And that old expression, the more you give, the more you get. So I love Hawaii. I love the people of Hawaii. And I've enjoyed getting involved, and hopefully I've made some contributions, and I think I've gotten quite a bit back.
You're making contributions to these businesses and communities, and you're yet a father. So what are you telling your daughters, in regards to getting involved in the community, whatever age they are?
My wife, Sue, and I have started we started a family foundation probably 10 years ago, M&R Quady Foundation, after her father. And our daughters are involved with us. So it's really through the foundation we're trying less to force and more to encourage their participation. So they get to make grant requests. They come before the board, and we have a rotating board. They present. But they need to do a bit of research in terms of not only gathering the information of the 501c corporation and the financials and the purpose, but then to present why this is a good contribution for our foundation to make. In terms of in the community, they interestingly and fortunately they are very much committed and involved. But it's been almost, I think, through example rather than by coaching or pushing it all. So one very much in the arts and loves the arts, and the other very much with animals as a recent graduate of a veterinary school.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Keep Papa Lecture Series at UH and why it's important to you and how it adds value?
Sure. The Keep Papa series at the University of Hawaii is a program sponsored by the university, and that I am involved and work very closely with in terms of bringing speakers to Hawaii. A large focus of that has been on venture capitalists, but also service providers to the technology sector, to entrepreneurs. Guy Kawasaki, probably one of the more famous entrepreneurs known here in Hawaii, and then other speakers, other entrepreneurs that have created great businesses, and letting them share their stories, their successes, what was important to them, what drove them, and then allowing that audience to really open up and ask questions. And so I think it's a great program. Vance Rowley, the Dean of the Business School, has been a wonderful supporter, and I've enjoyed working with him and others there.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.